Davey du Plessis is ons gas vandag en die storie of die rede hoekom ons hom vandag het is omdat hy hierdie ongelooflike belewenis gehad het wat hy geskiet is tydens een van sy avonture in die Amazone. How did that shoot? Why did it happen? Were you in a dangerous place? Obviously you were.
I was, but I only realized that once I was in the dangerous area, and by that time it was too late. And in terms of the attack, I don't know why. I mean, I have an assumption, but they had strategized the whole shooting. They had seen me. They actually came past me. They went ahead where there was a slight bend in the river. The one guy jumped out and he went and he hid in the jungle until I paddled past him, and I literally paddled into his line of sight and he just shot. And he didn't stop shooting until I stopped moving, and I looked like I was dead, and I just lay on the riverbank. And then eventually I ran away, and as I ran away, he shot again, and I left my kayak, all my equipment, and I have this assumption that the attack was just out of pure cruelty, maliciousness. You know, like if they wanted my stuff, they could have, before they went around and strategized this whole attack, they could have come and put the gun in my face and said, give us everything. Why do you plan an attack? And then why do you shoot the guy until he stops moving? Then when he runs and he's leaving his equipment, why do you shoot him again? It's like it was a game almost. And wow. Again, I don't know all the reasons. I don't know why it's happened. Why
did you run? Why didn't you just play dead?
Initially, I thought I was dying because I had a shot that punctured this carotid artery, and there was just a pool of blood that I was lying in. And you know, when you think, I mean, at that time, I was like, okay, I've been shot. I was in an isolated part of the jungle. I knew I was bleeding, and I lay and I waited to die. And I waited for several moments, and nothing happened. And then the shooter's accomplice came upriver in the boat, and when I saw this guy, then I automatically recognized, okay, this is what's happened. These guys are attacking you. And it was in seeing this guy that fear just took hold, you know, the fight or flight. I'm like, I got to get out of here. And it just shot adrenaline through my body, and I just took off into the jungle.
Did people know where you were? Did family members? It's a remote area, right?
They knew I was in the jungle. Yeah. They knew I was, you know, like if you had to look at the map, the spots between cities is almost 1,500 kilometers. And the last time I'd spoken to him was a week and a half ago. So they would have known more or less where I was if you had to look at a map. But then in terms of in the jungle, I mean, you're so isolated. And to put that isolation into perspective, when I eventually got out to hospital, these guys had, when they stole my equipment, they stole this device which, when you activate it, it sends out an SOS and a GPS coordinate. And the police got hold of this GPS coordinate, so they know where these attackers are. And they were like, well, listen, it's too far in the jungle, you're safe, we'll just leave it. And that just shows you how far it is away from any proper civilization. I mean, it really is the middle of the jungle.
I can't believe my time with you is up, because I'm like, what happens next? Davey will have to find out what happens next when you eventually ran to safety, or to a little dorpie, to a stuitjie. Dis 'n movie. Die ding is 'n movie. Nou ja, ons gaan kuier lekker.
Almal sit nou op die punte van hulle stoele wil nou weet wat gebeur met Davey verder. Dis nou Davey du Plessis natuurlik ons gas vanoggend. So here we have the story. You went to Peru, I think that's where you started.
Started in Peru.
On a kayak down the Amazon River, or one of the tributaries, I think. And there's this guy with a gun, and he shoots you.
It literally was as unsuspecting as that. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. The guys attacked, and then I was kind of thrown into a completely different situation where I was no longer worried about anything besides just getting out of the jungle alive.
Okay, and how many shots? How many times did they shoot you?
I shot 4 times. It was with a shotgun, you know, shotgun.
Oh, shotgun, yeah.
I mean, if it was a rifle, I wouldn't be here, because I got hit in the face, I got hits in the back, I got hits on this side of the face, and I got hit in the leg once also.
Okay, so it was a shotgun?
Definitely a shotgun,
well,
yeah.
Okay, that's not that. Okay, so you had quite a number of holes then.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got shot, and you decided, listen, I'm going to make a run for this, and you ran right into the bush.
Well, initially I just took off because I was petrified of what these guys would do if they got hold of me. So I just ran, like, with no sense of direction, just straight into the jungle. And then after some time, I eventually found 2 other individuals from another community. And I mean...
2 guys just strolling down the
No, it wasn't as simple as that. I went through these stages where once I ran away, I got completely helpless because I didn't know what to do, and I gave up.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to rot and die in the jungle. And then I got to this point where I said, you know what, at least put up a fight. At least give whatever part of your body is still working a chance to survive. And then when I found this motivation, I carried on down the river. And
where did you get that?
It's a long story, but I got to this point where I was so negative, I just gave up because I looked at the possible outcomes. I mean, if you had to put yourself in the situation, okay, you're shot, you're wounded, there's people trying to kill you, you're in one of the most isolated parts of the jungle, if not the world. There was no positive outcomes. And the more I thought about that, I'm just like, well, what's the point? What do I do? Where do I go? Where do I run? You're gonna rot in this jungle. And I remember just collapsing into the mud, and I just gave up, and I was just like, this is it. And I was just waiting until I died from blood loss. And I think I got so low, I hit such a pit that I had this like refresh where I was just like, no, this is not you.
Was it something that triggered that?
I think it was, for a good 5 or 6 minutes, I was talking to myself about how miserable my death was going to be. I was like, you're just going to rot in this jungle and you're going to fade in and out of consciousness. And then I hit this point where I was like, you spent the last 5 minutes of your life telling yourself how miserable your death's going to be. I'm like, this isn't you. You know, what's the point of having all this positivity and being ambitious and optimistic if at this time when you face this challenge, you're not even rising to it? And I got to the point where I felt so out of character that I'm like, no, this is not you. You're going to do something. You're going to keep breathing. You're going to keep moving. And you're going to do whatever you can till you find a way out of this jungle. And that's when I had this like transition where there was this first Davey who just gave up. Before I even attempted to find a way out, I just gave up. And I just went down and down and down. And then there was the second Davey who came out where I was so motivated to live, I felt that I could have been shot 10 times more and I still would have been finding some way out of that jungle.
Amazing stuff. The Davey and Davey show, Davey du Plessis wat ons gas is vanoggend. So there you are, you just found some internal strength somehow and you got up and off you go and you found 2 guys.
Well, as I said, it wasn't as simple as that. When I saw these 2 guys, they were across the river and the distance between us was about 800 meters. And I tried to call out to them, but from the shots, I had a punctured lung and a punctured windpipe, so I couldn't build up enough air pressure to make a sound. So I sat there trying to scream, trying to whistle, and no sound came out. And I did this for a good 10 minutes, just trying to get hold of these guys. And fortunately, they eventually saw me. And I think what got their attention is the fact that I had a blue shirt on against the green background. They took me into their community. And I can only really give this part of the story now that I came out. At that time, I had absolutely no idea what was going on. I couldn't understand them.
What this community, what did it look like? What is it, like a little dorpie, or what is it?
Well, they live in the jungle. It's a very self-reliant, self-sufficient community, and they live in these housing units that look almost like a Wendy house, and it's all built on stilts.
Okay.
But they're just isolated in the community, hidden by or surrounded by jungles, and they look like normal individuals. But they wear, most of the clothes are just tattered clothes, but they're not the type of tribal Indians that you would think that the Amazon has. They were normal individuals, just with a very rural, isolated community in the jungle.
And they then took you to hospital or what, I guess?
Well, from there, I was still over a day and a half away from hospital by motorboat. And I didn't know what was happening, but the eventual plan was they hopped me from different community to different community throughout the jungle, throughout the night. So I passed through 5 different communities where every community I was taken, they had to explain the story, say, okay, well, we don't have the petrol, we don't have the money to get him any further. Can he now be your responsibility? Can you take him to the next community? You know, almost like a relay race with the baton. I was the baton. They just passed all the way through the jungle. And then 24 hours later, I eventually got to a hospital in Pucallpa. And when I got there, the issue then became money, is that they weren't prepared to operate until I could prove who I was and how I was going to pay.
But you had nothing with you because you left everything.
All I had was a pair of ski shorts on. And this is where the irony of the whole story comes in. Once I got to Pucallpa, I eventually got hold of my mom and I told her, Mom, I've been shot. And she went networking and just, this is one of the unknowns I don't know, but we managed to link SAB, the South African breweries. They had an operational plant in Pucallpa and they had some members that came to my aid. But the irony is that I don't drink and I don't support alcohol. But at my most crucial moment, the SAB were there for me.
There's a lesson in there. There's a lesson in there. Okay, as ons wil hê die skoolboeke moet afgelewer word, moet ons vir SAB vra. Davey du Plessis wat ons gas vanoggend is. So you got eventually passed on from one community to the other and you got, in a way, you ended up in this hospital and there's SAB, South African Breweries, providing all the guarantees to stitch you up.
Well, once I got there, okay, because they'd taken so much time to worry about how I was going to pay, by the time SAB stepped in, it was now nightfall on a Sunday evening, and they said, well, okay, we can help him, but we do not have the facilities to operate. We need to get him to a hospital in Lima. And in order to get to Lima, you have to fly over a section of the Peruvian Andes. And no light aircraft was prepared to do this at night as it was too dangerous. So then what they did is they booked me on a commercial airliner like a Mango, and they put me on a stretcher and they booked out a whole aisle of seats and then they put me on top of the seats and they used the seat belts to harness me in. And then we took off an hour later. I arrived in Lima, and then I remained in Lima for just under a month, and I'd suffered a punctured heart, punctured lung, punctured carotid artery, punctured windpipe, and severe internal bleeding. And I think the coolest part of the story...
Cool part, there is a cool part.
There's a cool part, is with the shot that went in the heart, it got lodged in the septum, so it's perfectly placed in the middle of the heart, like almost where the core is of an apple, and it's still there today.
One of the pellets?
One of the shots, yeah, it's perfectly lodged, and they left it. It's kind of like a reminder of what I went through.
Does it move around? Let's go brrr, brrr, or something like that. Listen, we totally ran out of time. There are so many other things I would like to ask. One question I want to ask you. You're a bit of a naturalist, I think, and I want to ask you many other things. Just give me a bit of a sense of what's it like to be in the Amazon. I'm sure you must have gone and sit on the banks of the river, for example, and just sit still. What did you experience? What was that? What did you see and hear and feel?
It was by far the most overwhelming feeling I've ever felt, where you feel so dwarfed by nature. I mean, when your entire environment is just green, it's not forest, it's thick, dense jungle, and the sounds you hear, it almost feels as though you're in a different part of the planet. Like, you know, I don't know if you've seen the movie Avatar. You know, when they go to that I think.
Tree place.
That tree place, yeah, the tree place, best explanation. Yeah. But it's literally like that.
And give me a sense of the animals and the plants and the butterflies and the flowers. Is it totally alien from what we have in South Africa?
Completely. I mean, you know, in South Africa we have big creatures that are iconic to, you know, we have the big five. Whereas the Amazon, they have the small, colourful things. It's the small things that are the danger, but they're also the beauty. But you're so immersed or so immersed in such a huge environment that it was so difficult to have many animal encounters because you're just too small. It's like you become this ant in your environment. And any opportunity that I had with encountering animals was if they pretty much swam right in front of me. Otherwise, it was too dense.
And is the water clear?
No.
Is it muddy?
Yeah, very muddy and murky.
And okay, you are a vegetarian. Are you vegetarian? Or you're a vegan, actually?
A vegan.
What's that? You don't eat things that are more ugly than you, for instance.
Wow. Never looked at it like that. Well, you know, being a naturalist, and I have this deep compassion for nature, and I think it was that fascination that created this vegan lifestyle where I do not eat any animal products, even down to honey. No fish, no chicken, no
milk, nothing.
Milk,
Where
nothing.
do you get protein? Nuts.
Well, we can get into the dietary debate.
But come on, you're eating the seeds of the poor plants.
Well, if you're comparing a plant to an animal, I think I'm in the wrong conversation. But, I mean, it all stems just from that awe of nature, where I just kind of took this avenue where I eliminated everything relating to an animal.
Davey, can you survive? I mean, that's not the real world you're living in. It's a different world. Can you survive? Different. Can you survive in this world? You can't survive in this world with your value system, with what you believe in.
It's difficult. I'll be honest. It's difficult because society often has different views. But I got to a point a long time ago where I realized that I have a personal responsibility of my impact, and ultimately it's my life, it's my emotions, and it's my perspectives. And
of course,
I looked at my impact, and I got to the point where I was like, I want to do what I feel's right. And I looked at these industries that we all support. I mean, every rand you spend is literally a vote. And I got to the point where I'm going to support the guys that have an ethical view towards how they conduct their business.
Well, if you talk about ethics, well, it's not necessarily the right place to be. So I've got Jan Arm. Kom julle ouens van lank kant. She's julle klets so Are you planning something? You're not going to have that, all right? I'll just take it.
Drink
So are you? What's the next place? Where else are you going to go to? What's the next place you're going to go to? There's Jan Arm.
I'll be honest. I know what I am going to be doing, but I haven't made it public because there's still a few things I have to.
Can you give me the continent?
I'll give you a clue. It's not a continent.
It's not a continent. Okay. All right, there you go. That makes it much easier. Well, listen, I just love talking to you. The program is just too short. I must tell you, I think you are just far too good to be on this. So, Jan Arm,
I want to give you this bottle of wine. I know you don't drink alcohol, but remember what you learned now with the SAB thing. Right? So this might come in handy at some stage. Thanks very much for coming today. It's been very inspirational.
You can use that to clean your wounds next time.
Dit is ongelooflik heerlik gekuier vandag.